Our French politics editor, Marc Perelman, who's with me right now. And Marc, we're just digesting the results of this presidential election, but already eyes are on the parliamentary election that's coming up in June. Now, walk us through why it's important for the president, because normally presidents do secure a parliamentary majority, don't they? But Macron, clearly he's managing a very polarised country. So do you think he'll get that majority?
It's very difficult to say that today. And this is a challenge because, yes, Emmanuel Macron made history yesterday night by becoming the first president to be re-elected with a sitting majority. There were some presidents re-elected, François Mitterrand and Jacques Chirac, but it was a situation where you had a prime minister from the opposition at the time, and so they managed to use that to be re-elected. Emmanuel Macron doesn't have that momentum, as you say. It's a very polarized country, lots of abstention, lots of votes for the far left in the first round, lots of votes, even though not enough to be elected for the far right in the second round. And the majority he built in 5 years ago was made of people who were not professional politicians, and some of them did not perform really well at the National Assembly. And Emmanuel Macron's party squarely rests on him. He wasn't able to build a real party, and that's a real weakness because, yes, it's a legislative elections. It comes immediately after a presidential election, but it's 577 constituencies, so it's 577 races, and you need to have good candidates. So it's going to be a problem for Emmanuel Macron to replicate what he was able to pull off 5 years ago, and he may need alliances. This is why you've seen him begin to negotiate, for instance, with the former conservative president Nicolas Sarkozy, possibly an agreement where some of the conservative MPs would run and then maybe help Emmanuel Macron get a majority in parliament. This is still up in the air, but clearly it's a different situation than 5 years ago.
Yeah, so we could see an alliance, you're saying, between Emmanuel Macron's party and that traditional party of the centre-right, Les Républicains.
At least part of it. We could see this party explode and have a division between those who would go with Macron and those who would stay against Macron.
Because the party itself, Les Républicains, the traditional party of the far right, has really struggled in these national elections. So perhaps actually they now need Macron if they are to survive nationally.
They've not only struggled, they've crashed.
Yeah.
I mean, 4.7%. Their candidate was worse than all the predictions said she would be, Valérie Pécresse. They have 100 MPs, 102, I think, MPs in Parliament, which is, obviously the biggest group after Macron's majority, but they face a real threat that they could lose a lot of seats. And so, yes, there is a possibility that Emmanuel Macron would agree with some of the Républicains not to field the candidate against them if the Républicains don't field the candidate against a Macron candidate in other constituencies. So, yes, this is part of the discussion that's taking place as we speak behind the scenes.
And what about for Marine Le Pen? Clearly, she wants to try and capitalise on her relative success in this presidential election. Currently, I believe her party only has 7 seats in the National Assembly. So is it going to be hard for her to do better nationally this time?
No, it's not going to be hard because 7 MPs is really, it's not even enough to get a group at the National Assembly. You need 15 out of 577. So she is clearly hoping to do better. The problem is the system. It's a 2-round system, and it doesn't favor her party. It doesn't favor many other parties. And so this is why you have a complaint not only from the National Rally, but also from the far left, and even within Emmanuel Macron's majority, that there should be at least part of the MPs elected through proportional voting. And the problem is that Emmanuel Macron said he wanted this reform to be implemented. He wasn't able to make it happen. And even though he might say, OK, I want to do it, it's only going to be for the next legislative elections in 5 years' time. So it's going to be very, very difficult for Marine Le Pen to reach a majority in parliament. Same for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the far-left leader, who's already said he wants to be prime minister, but how do you go from 27 MPs to the magic majority, which is 279? So he needs to multiply this figure by 10. He will probably do much better, but for this, he needs allies.
Yeah, indeed. So do you think we will see alliances on the far left as well as potentially on the centre right?
Well, the far left is not the problem. It's the left. That's the problem. Jean-Luc Mélenchon has one big advantage. The other parties on the left were wiped out. We just talked about Les Républicains getting 4.7%, but it's still more than the Green Party candidate got and 3 times more than the Socialist Party candidate got. So they're in an extremely weak position. There have been vicious exchanges between the far left, the Greens and the Socialists during this campaign. And Jean-Luc Mélenchon now clearly can say, well, you've insulted me during this election, saying I was a radical and so on. But now, if you want some seats in parliament, you have to discuss with me and on my terms. So basically, there is this discussion going on. Jean-Luc Mélenchon knows he has the upper hand, but he still needs to clinch alliances. It's not because you have 22% in the presidential election that you will have all the seats in parliament. They really have to go seat by seat, constituency by constituency, to be able to build, if not a majority, at least a sizable minority in parliament to have an influence on national politics.
All right, we'll see what happens in that election. Thanks very much indeed, Marc Perelman, for us there.